loved one has gone through here, but you've found through this process, you're having internal dialogues and actually growing and checking in with yourself as well. Is that right?
Exactly, and realizing that maybe I contributed to that miscommunication.
Wow. So that is a huge aha moment that a lot of the times we miss. Well, because it's scary becoming vulnerable. It's scary saying, well, do I have a part in this? And if so, I'm actually willing to look at it because I love you and I want this to work.
Yeah. And
how are you able to get to that level of, I guess, uncomfortable comfortability to be that vulnerable?
Well, actually, after talking to you, the whole thing, going through the time after the intervention.
Okay.
And then when he became homeless and we didn't think he was going to take advantage was the worst. And you said, I
actually remember that. I remember. So the idea initially was that intervention because you didn't feel it was an issue really and didn't want to look at it. And the most difficult time, which is for a lot of families, is if the intervention isn't accepted, what happens after that? Because a lot of the boundaries you set. I tell people, setting boundaries is one of the easiest things in the world. Nope. Holding the boundary is what is so stinking difficult.
Yeah.
And to be able to be secure enough to say, okay, I'm not going to allow myself to be manipulated, but I have to stand firm knowing that ultimately it's going to help me. And we say we got to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, then we can help the other. And when something like that happens, is really doing self-care. And so that's right. I remember that. He was homeless for about a week?
A week.
I think.
And what's interesting that I was thinking about today is how each family member viewed it differently. For some people, the boundaries were hard. For me, it wasn't hard because you made sense to me and there was a lot of guidance there and you had been through it before, so I knew I was doing the right thing.
So having that faith in the process.
In the process.
But also, you brought up a great point. The family dynamic is so difficult, especially when there's multiple family members that really care and so many people are affected
different
by
personalities and the way that, they relate to him. But the thing that I personally found harder was, no, I shouldn't say harder, different.
Okay.
Maybe more challenging for me is when he was in here and I didn't know what to believe. I hadn't been in his shoes
all
before.
The information being shared.
I didn't know what I had really done wrong. I didn't know I didn't know how to proceed. Right. That's when I called you and said, I've got some issues because I don't know if I believe what he says ever. I want to believe good things, but I'm not having been in that position. That was really difficult for me.
Yeah, well, it gets really difficult because we want to believe everything. And so there's a saying in AA, it's we judge ourselves off our intentions, others judge us by our actions. And if my intentions aren't in alignment with my actions, that's usually a key indicator of something's not working or something's not clicking. And so being able to see the behavior and to say, well, there's a lack of trust now, and it sounds like it's been going on for a while. Here's what we need to start moving that trust needle forward. We have to see the actions and the behavior, and it's on both sides.
Oh, yeah. That's where I found out after talking to you was that I was operating at that point without guidance and fully on fear. That it's going to backfire, we're going to go backwards, I'm going to say something that sets him off, and then...
And that tiptoeing and literal lifestyle on eggshells is what really destroys families. And it's ironic because unconsciously or consciously we're thinking I have to. Unconsciously it's like here's what we do to just survive and to cohabitate in this world.
Yeah.
But by understanding, oh my gosh, by actually doing this is my portion of the sickness that is actually creating this lifestyle, if you will.
Yeah.
So I want to affirm, because I know we've had many talks on the phone of being able to, first of all, being up for this whole journey of saying, I want to look at myself just as much as I want to look at my loved one, but really not being, well, I shouldn't say not being afraid of even pushing through the fear, rolling up the sleeves and saying, I want to grow through this. Because, if I recall, we actually talked about, I only have control over myself. I can't control the other person. So I have a choice. I can continue to get healthy. get more educated in this and learn what I can do to help myself. And then if this person wants help too, I'm for it. But if not, I can continue to grow regardless of this person. There's a saying of, I don't need another person's permission for me to grow.
Yeah, and it puts me back in that place where I knew that the boundary setting was the right thing to do. Then I'm focusing on empowering myself and knowing what the right thing to do is for me and then for him, like the oxygen mask. So it's been great. It's been really great. And the thing I was thinking about today is I am a person that's like, if we have an issue, let's hammer it out. Let's get it done. Let's now. And it's probably also because I'm the firstborn and, kind of take charge of things. And I realized that through what we talked about communication with him is that I'm trusting my gut. Like if I want to know something or I'm worried about something, I can communicate with him about that, but I don't have to just hammer it out all right then. I've been putting something out there, working on it, and then trusting my gut that, okay, I don't have to know this answer right now. We can talk about that over coffee next week.
So how are we able to get there? Because that typically is so difficult to actually change a style of communication with what works for me and then learning this person's communication style is different. I am willing to engage in the space with them and to meet them where they are, because that's huge.
I think it's taking responsibility probably for my part in the past where that wasn't the best way to proceed in hammering it out, getting it done. That's the way I operate. So I was kind of speaking Chinese to someone who speaks English.
Yeah.
So maybe just putting a little bit out there, seeing if we understand it, being a little more patient. Maybe that's come with age too. And just seeing the benefits from taking baby steps.
So over the course of that time, you've seen the change, you've seen the progress. And so what is it like now getting to be in communication and where you are now?
Oh, it's great. It's not perfect because there have been some times where, that have come up recently that I have concerns, but I know that to slow down, it's a process. Don't rush to the fear part that it's all going to fall apart. It can be worked out. It may not be the way I would do it. And just trying to really learn how he thinks instead of just what I think is good for him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because I'm kind of educating myself through him and on my own because I don't know with the amount of drug use what it's really done to the way he thinks. And how can I judge based on the way I've lived my life that I know what he should be doing. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the trap a lot of us fall into is this, and it's not even really conscious most of the time, but there's like this level of shame as far as you should be doing this because this is what works for me and I want you to do it. And ironically, on the other end, a lot of time for the addict, it's the same thing. It's well, you should just leave it be. It's not affecting me. And it's my perception of the world forced on you. And we've got two people going like this. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, where's the issue? It's kind of like, well, we're both, what if we went ahead and said, let me own my stuff, let me own my stuff. And again, there's no right or wrong. We try to remove right and wrong. It's how do we start owning our stuff because we both have the same common goal. Yeah. The goal is how do we move in life to become healthy and to be with each other and to actually get to experience each other in this life as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a process. So many people rush to the finish line as opposed to, wait a minute, it's the journey. I just heard this wonderful analogy actually this morning driving to work. They're talking about the road to Hana. I think it's in Maui.
Yes.
And there's this couple driving and the husband was just saying, oh my gosh, it's beautiful, look at this. And they finally get after, what is it, like 8 hours or something like that, 6 hours to Hana. It's this tiny little podunk town with a single gas station. And in this analogy, the wife's like, wait, this is it? This is what we waited for? Oh my gosh, this is a waste. and just the two different perceptions of the destination versus the journey. And oh my gosh, the journey is what makes the destination.
Yeah.
And so of recognizing that, and this whole lifestyle of an addict coming and becoming healthier and leaving that addiction lifestyle, and the family member supporting, and also leaving the old relationship and coming into the new relationship, to be able to cohabitate as a family that really we all just want to be loved and heard and experience each other in that authentic way.
Yeah. It's interesting too, having my daughters, especially the one at home, and watching them because they just think he hung the moon, you know. But he doesn't feel that way about himself. I think it's coming, but just seeing their viewpoint. And the other day my daughter said to me something about, I really want to be with him a lot. I'm still not 100% comfortable asking him to do this or asking him to do that. And he seems to respond sometimes jokingly, like a friend of hers, kind of like, oh well, okay, joking, like you don't want to do something with me. And now that he and I have talked a lot, I was able to tell her that that's fronted like a joke, but he really does feel like maybe he's not worthy still, the shame. And so it's, it just had a deeper meaning, and it just clicked. She got it, you know.
So it's even changing the relationship with your kids.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So that is so incredible. We develop coping mechanisms just to survive. And so to be able to be at a safe enough place in this journey where you can have that open dialogue with him, where it sounds like each other are recognizing these behavioral patterns, going, oh, that's what a lot of people forget, especially on the family side, is the amount of internal shame. I have yet to meet an addict, and I've been doing this for a while, that said, yeah, I'm so excited to be an addict. Like, sign me up, that's awesome. Yeah. This is great, I want to scream it from rooftops. There's actually so much shame involved, and this guilt, and it's like this little secret thing. That's why one of the A's in AA is anonymous, because the stigma is just this negative part. And so that carries over and is deep. And the fact that he's able to actually be aware of that and say, even though I kind of joke, I still feel this inside. Even though I know intellectually it's not true, there's still this feeling after all these years of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. And really that's part of the human experience. Yeah. We all feel that. I still battle that daily. Anytime something happens, like, oh, okay, that's right. One of the primary universal fears is I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough. It's triggering on that. I know that's BS, but man, I still feel that way.
Yeah.
And this is after, I've been in and out of therapy since like 6 years old.
Yeah.
I'm really messed up. But I'm okay. But it's incredible. As we start learning that, we're able to teach the next generation, teach our kids, so when they actually hear that, they're able to say, oh, I'm picking up on that.
Yeah.
And even though you're joking, I just want to acknowledge that you're thinking that, and know that you're awesome in my eyes, because that's his stuff.
Yeah.
And when I get comfortable, or I guess when I become more emotionally mature, I'm able to acknowledge, oh, that's his stuff, and I don't have to take that on, and I can just be there with him and say, oh, I'm sensing you're thinking maybe you're not good enough, or whatever it is. And just by having that open dialogue, we call it external processing when we talked on the phone.
Yes.
It's amazing, because we're able to actually experience together. I'm sensing maybe you're joking, but maybe you're not feeling like you can come over, but I want you to know, we love having you here.
Yeah.
And that dialogue opens that up, where it's a safe space to actually explore these feelings.
Yeah. It's been really interesting too. When we first started talking, after you and I spoke, he did express a lot of shame. And I said, it's just so interesting because it's like someone who's lost a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And you maybe have seen them huge, you're used to seeing them in this body, and they've lost this weight. After a while, when you get used to that, you forget what they looked like.
It's a beautiful analogy.
So I said, we don't even think that's not a part of you. That's an external thing that happened because there's something wrong, some problem that needs to be solved.
And I remember we talked about that actually when everyone was together. If I'm not mistaken, we talked about separating the behavior from the person.
Yeah.
And that is so huge. Of this behavior is what created this pain. It's this behavior that we are setting these boundaries to change. Use the person, oh my gosh, unconditional love.
Yeah. And it was also interesting, like when he spent those 7 days homeless before he came here, how gut-wrenching, scary it was for my whole family. And we were constantly texting and upset. And there were times that he let on telling his side of it, that it was more like I don't want to say an adventure, like, because that sounds like Disneyland, but, but you know, it wasn't such a big deal. It was something that we had imposed on him. And when I let him know, I said, you know, there was nothing funny about that at all. It was the scariest, most gut-wrenching time of my life. He said, really? Like he couldn't. I was shocked that he was shocked that we were all feeling that. And that told me right there, he doesn't feel worthy. Because
what's a level of disconnect that happens?
I was like, wow. So we shared back and forth what we were feeling, and I think it really opened his eyes that, you know, we really do care about him. I told him, I said, for 30 days after that, basically 30 days, I did the Marie Kondo Organize Your Home, because I was just so drained and sorrowful and relieved, but just checked out. And I spent that time kind of doing something I knew was positive that allowed me to be in solitude and think. And I said, yeah, it took a while to come out of that, you know. And
well, it's emotional surgery, and that's what a lot of people miss that. And it's kind of like this, I just want to fix it. It's kind of like, in order to fix it, you've got to go into surgery. You've got to get opened up. We've got to go ahead and do the stitching and close it down, and then there's time for that wound to heal. And then eventually it becomes strong. But a lot of people miss that aspect. And so by understanding part of the process, and some people say, you have to go through some of your greatest fears in order to realize your full potential. And a lot of the times, the biggest fear, especially in the family dynamic, is what happens if this doesn't work, or what happens if the person continues. And if I remember correctly, I think there'd been some attempts before, but there was a lot of enabling because of that fear. And it took that final one to say, I can't enable anymore. As scary and as difficult as it may be, and of course the scary thing is the unknown. When we really strip it down, all fear stems from the unknown. When I'm 100% certain something's gonna happen, there's no fear because there's 100% certainty of the outcome.
yeah,
But when we're uncertain and have that discomfort, that is typically where a lot of people will say okay at first, but as soon as they actually feel that fear, they jump in and revert back to the old coping mechanisms.
yeah,
And so I think one of the huge points that you and the family did was able to say, look, we love you unconditionally, and knowing all the tactics and stuff that came up, we don't have to get into it, but of knowing that all this stuff was launched, but to still love the person and say, the gift is still here, the gift is still here. Eventually it was, crap, life sucks. Me trying to do things on my own and cutting everyone up, it sucks, I'm ready. And it even took, if I remember, it took a couple weeks of a while, because normally we go into this whole victimization, look at what you did to me, different things.
Yes.
And as we work through, and again, not saying, no, you did this, going, well, let's share, let's talk.
yeah,
It was amazing seeing your openness, and again, that word keeps popping up to me, is vulnerability, to say, let me see what my part is. I'm willing to hear, to see what we can do collectively as a family to do this, and then now the outcome, just, oh my gosh.
it's been great. I do want to ask a question.
Uh-huh.
One thing he said during the intervention is continued to say after, not so much lately, was that no one came to me personally. And we didn't. He's right on that. I didn't know then or now how much is the addiction driving that response. Like, I don't know that I would have gotten the truth if I would have gone to him alone, but I didn't. We did gang up on him,
Yeah, no, and I actually, with you bringing that up, I remember that. And so yeah, there's a lot of different aspects to look at. And if I recall sitting there, it was, I don't know how to come to you, so this is me coming to you, of being so afraid of what could happen if this isn't done in a way that we know you're going to get the help. So this is my attempt, and if I hurt you in this attempt, that wasn't my intention, and we navigated it. But yeah, a lot of the times, so you're saying how much the addiction drives that? Well, when we are actually in our pain, we're being confronted, we will do anything. Look over there, it's you did this, it's all your fault, whatever we can. And as soon as we see someone go, oh really? Then we know that's what I'm gonna continue to do.
Yes.
Here's the chink in the armor. If you would have done this, it could have been this. Me 7 days out was because of you. It's that innate quality of literally survival for us, which fortunately has kept us on earth for gosh, a long time, hopefully a long time to come. But nowadays it's different, because back then it really was fight or flight. You heard a rustle in the bushes, you had to run or kill, otherwise you'd be killed. Yeah. Nowadays that's no longer there. But with a 2 million year old brain, we haven't evolved to, oh wait, but this is stirring up emotions in me, and it's okay to sit here and to work through these emotions. This is still new in this whole process. So understanding, oh, this is part of that old prehistoric brain of fight or flight. Here's what I'm gonna do. But one thing that you did great is you owned it and said, you know, that's a real valid statement, and I didn't know how to do this. And I'm gonna learn. So as stuff comes up in the future, hopefully not as serious as this, I'm able to come and confront you in a healthy way of what I'm feeling or thinking. And it really establishes, back to how we started talking, is this family dynamic that comes together, and it's just more enjoyable and healthy. Even when we tackle the crazy heavy stuff, it's actually done in a way where it's like, I know we're gonna make it through this. Yeah. And we can talk openly about it and actually discover with each other, instead of this, you see it my way or else. No, you see it my way or else.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have taken that into consideration in contacting him, and it's really helped our communication. And it happened with you, because when I called you, I didn't tell him at first, and it was about what I wanted to work out. But then as we talked about how to communicate, it was like a big aha moment. And I did tell him that I talked to you, and he actually encouraged me to come talk to you, because he really loved what you had to say. And he thought it would help me. And it almost, I felt like there was a little light that went off with him, that like, oh, they're not viewing me as the only one that has to do any changing, because they actually have problems too, so maybe they're not judging me.
And it's amazing, and again, that you hit on that, because so many times there's so much pain and anger and frustration that we do tend to just dump when the person starts to get help. So to have that clarity to say, look, I want to grow in this process too, and that's difficult for a lot of people, because when it comes to this type, I mean, it's all over, but when it comes to addiction, it's not just stuff at a physical or emotional or mental level. I mean, sometimes there's damage done at a spiritual level. It goes deep. And so when a person is getting help, the addict coming in, a lot of the times the outside is so quick to say, it's all you, not me. And so my question, not to put you on the spot, but to put you in the spot, how were you able to have that clarity to really look at that ownership to say, look, I'm here with you. I'm jumping into the trenches, and we're gonna figure this out together, and I wanna grow as well.
That's kind of, well, because, well, I know I had a lot of question and didn't know how to proceed, and I was feeling very much anxiety and fear. Okay. Whereas before I felt very strong, and I was feeling very vulnerable, and that felt not comfortable at all. I wanted more control and clarity about what to do.
That's a key word, control. Yeah. Because when we focus on control, it's an illusion. We can't really control anything in this life. And once we become aware of that, then we basically give ourselves permission to become vulnerable. And then vulnerability can actually be a beautiful thing when it's done in a safe place, in a safe realm, and with people that are actually there to help guide through. It becomes this beautiful experience that actually strengthens us. And the word that I keep hearing you come up with is, it seems like anytime fear has presented itself in this process and you've had faith and trusted the process, right on the other side of that fear has been a breakthrough or an aha.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that and sharing it?
It kind of becomes evident as we talk. It does become evident as we talk, and then the bottom line is, honestly, that kid has no idea how much I love him, and I would do anything. It comes down to that really too. And so yeah, it's been pretty amazing, because I feel like there are constant aha moments, and there's a calmness. I was concerned the other day about a possibility in a decision that's kind of coming, he's been talking about, and I found myself going back to that worry, overwhelming, consuming, where then I put myself second and take on this big problem, and just because of the successes and because of what we talked about, I just kind of sat with it and felt like there was a possible plan. We could just talk a little bit, and it was going to be okay. That's not really the control I was seeking, but I don't even want that control anymore. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because this is more of a confidence and a calmness and a happiness, So I feel great about that.
That's incredible. I'm very grateful that you've been as vocal as you have in our conversations and allowing us to be there as part of this exploratory process. It is actually pretty unique with your family dynamic and how open people have been of looking at themselves. Usually it takes a while to get to the place where the family's starting to look within, because so much damage has been done, to look within and say, well, what is my part? How do I own my stuff? And really enter into this new conversation from here moving forward, what that looks like, so we can continue to grow together. And hearing you already catching yourself going back to the old way and going, oh, wait a minute, that's the old way. Let me explore this. That is amazing.
Good.
I love it. Well, that's what gets me so excited about doing this stuff, because it's one thing when they're in the bubble of treatment, and it's completely different once they start moving out and getting to the next phases, because that's where life really takes place. And to see these different transitions and how that's going, and both family and individual utilizing these tools and recognizing it and being able to help each other with it, and this healthy confrontation, if you will, because a lot of times the confrontation is negative before, and so confrontation gets a bad rap. Actually, almost everything in life comes from confrontation. If you think about it, it comes from some form of friction, the old diamond analogy, more pressure. But when we look at that, we can think, oh, there's a healthy way to have confrontation, dialogue, not fighting, but dialogue, that leads to both people feeling heard and being able to come towards this mutual understanding for this consistent growth. And as we continue this through life, we start modeling, like you said, to your children, and it just keeps going on, and we become more equipped to handle all the beauty and all the crap that life throws at us.
Yeah, it's been interesting, and as you're talking, I'm realizing two different things in our there are several of us in our family, and his relationship with different people is at different stages. In the way that they're handling, but it is different. And my relationship with others in the family are at different stages also. But I have to say, my relationship with him is enabling me to be more positive and hopeful and relaxed about the future. Does that make sense? It's
totally.
It's not this intense urgency and distraught feeling or real happy feeling. It's just a calmness to know that we can respect each other and respect our own journeys and learn about them and communicate and grow closer that way. And it's been really nice.
That is awesome.
Very nice.
So is there anything that you can think of if someone's watching this that is where you guys used to be? Maybe right now they're where you used to be, and what that either hope looks like or just some parting words of wisdom.
Oh, I think the going through when he refused help was one of the hardest things I've done. One of the hardest things I've done in my life, and in some ways one of the easiest, because I knew what the right thing to do was, but it really sucked those days. And knowing that you're doing that out of love, and that's going to balance that feeling of fear and anger and maybe a little depression feeling, that love is going to balance all that out. And I would just encourage people to look at themselves too. I learned a lot about myself through this. And, you know, for instance, my sister and I have gotten a lot closer through it. You know, just the worry and talking about how we looked at him and probably mothered him a lot, and you know, maybe things that we did or tend to do or take on sadness. I just would encourage people to know that you love this person and do everything you know is right.
Yeah,
to love them.
It's interesting. We tend to think most of our life is compartmentalized, but what happens here is being repeated all out here. And so that's pretty typical of hearing, well, our relationship is better, but actually I'm growing over here too, and over here it's affecting all aspects of life. And it's like, yes, that's the whole point. Yeah. That's the wonderful point that a lot of the times, and I forget to mention that part, but it's like, oh, a byproduct of this will be X, Y, Z. It's like the byproduct will be other relationships will be benefit. Work usually gets better. I mean, we see just this flow of everywhere.
Yeah. Where you're so focused on the addiction and the addict and getting them help, you don't realize you need a little bit too. And then when they're getting their help, I found that it was a sense of almost sometimes a little bit of jealousy. Like, I'd like to go and work on myself, you know? And a little anger and love, and but it all came around to a healing of all of us.
Yeah.
And will continue. You know?
Yeah, that's the beauty of this life is every day we get another day on the planet, we get to grow.
Yeah. And
it's a never-ending process. So one thing that you said too, and this came up in one of the groups earlier today, is making decisions for your future self. And so if hearing you say that, where, gosh, it was the scariest day, the most difficult thing I'd ever done, but also the most beautiful, I think, or I forget the word you used, but it was really neat. There's this paradoxical moment. Yeah. And so one of the themes that keeps coming up is, by making the hard choices today, the future me has an easier life. And what tends to happen is we make the easier decisions today, and the future me has a much more difficult life. And so by tackling the more difficult things up front today allows for this beautiful journey. It doesn't mean it's easy. People are like, well, I thought it was going to be easier. It's like, well, no, actually, in some ways, a lot of things become more difficult, but you have more tools to be able to take that on. And so hearing you say that, it was neat just kind of seeing how everything just kind of comes together.
Yeah, and great things are happening for him too.
Yeah, it's been really neat to see the growth of all aspects and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So thank you for finding us. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your guys' journey.
And thank you for being open to talking to me about my issues, because you don't know what to do when you haven't lived that life of drug addiction.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't understand what they're thinking or what's true, you sort of feel like you're in the eye of the storm.
Yeah. I loved your analogy of having a translator. I'm speaking this language, this person's speaking this language. I don't know how to communicate. And ironically, using that analogy, I crack myself up when I tend to talk slower and louder, thinking that they'll get it. And it's like, I still don't speak your language. It's kind of a funny but a beautiful analogy. Kind of like, that's right. We get so frustrated, we tend to talk louder and slower, as opposed to going, oh, we're just not talking the same language. Let's get an interpreter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been great, and I appreciate it. I'm very thankful for all you all have done, and thanks for all when he was on his own, it was scary, and you all were very encouraging, telling us we were doing the right thing and loving him.
Yeah, that's the tough part. A lot of people will cut off the love mistakenly, as opposed to, no, the love keeps flowing. That's unconditional. It's the behaviors that we step in and hold, and it becomes a blurred line sometimes, and enabling comes in. So yeah, it was tough, and I mean, I'll be honest, I'm doing this for a while. It hasn't gotten any easier for me. It's still the same stuff. I'm just like, I have to believe in the process, and knowing enabling will actually harm this person even more, even though we don't know the outcome. Here's what we got to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.